Hello, welcome to a Has TV video. Today is another episode of Oslo Wildlife Park. Last episode it was just a bit of upgrading video. However, this episode I'm going to be starting an entirely new section over here. And probably I'm going to be building it all in this video. However, off camera, I have replaced the Nile Electroid in here with the Cafe Electroid mod. I think it just looks nicer to have Cafe Electroid instead of Nile Electroid, especially in this sort of enclosure. Not really like a swampy enclosure. So yeah, Cafe Electroid's better for this sort of enclosure. However, the new section I will be building is the American Frontier section. So basically the giant grasslands with bison, pronghorn antelope, stuff like that. So let's start building. So this is what the American Frontier section looks like. As soon as you enter it, there's two ways you can go. Or you can go see this big herbivore enclosure with bison, pronghorn and bighorn sheep. If you come this way, however, this is a mixed enclosure with... Why are you just stood in here? Are you stuck? Okay, I can't move him. Can I delete that? No, I'm going to just delete him. No, let's just hide them in it. Cause I'm pretty sure they're stuck there, so let's just hide them with a tree. However, this is a mixed enclosure with chipmunk mod and the turkey mod, the wild turkey mod. I know there's a chipmunk. The chipmunk is actually based off of the meerkat from the South African pack, or the African pack in general. And then if you carry on going this way, you got another mixed enclosure with white-tailed deer and mule deer. Just off to the side. I'm going to do a lot of off-camera work, adding a bunch of trees in this area. However, I don't want this video to be really long. It's already really long from how long it took me to build. However, over here you got the prairie dogs, which is from the North America pack. This is just a meerkat and mongoose and porcupine enclosure. I copied it over here, but I changed it up a bit. And then over here, the final animal in this section is the North American river otter. It's a mod, once again. However, I think it's really cool. Now, I am going to add more stuff to it off camera. However, that will be the end of the video. Remember to like and subscribe, but HazardTV.co.uk for some HazardTV merch. Until next time,